Section 11 of the Golden Porch. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Du Bois, Orlando, 2023. The Golden Porch by W.M.L. Hutchinson. Peleus and the Sea King's Daughter. Chapter 3. It was summer once again in the green forest when Chiron lay one evening in the doorway of his cave, thinking of the young beloved guest who housed with him so long. He had seen Peleus no more since his marriage night, but he had heard how King Acastus had sought for him far and near to take his life, and how vengeance overtook that persecutor at last. For, according to the sure promise of Zeus, Peleus had gone down alone to Locos and taken it single-handed, putting to rout the king and all his host with no helper but his own good spear. Now he slew Acastus in the fight, and when the wicked queen Hippolyta saw what was done, she hanged herself. So Peleus was lord of the city, but he loathed it when he thought on the end of those two. Therefore he sent for valiant princes, his friends, out of the north country, and gave them the city to dwell in, and himself went to that country and ruled it in their stead. And there, as Chiron heard, he built a fair palace by the sea for the daughter of Nereus. While the old centaur was thus musing in the twilight, Peleus himself came softly over the mossy turf and stood beside him. But Chiron, wrapped in thought, neither saw nor heard his coming. Then Peleus gently laid a bundle rolled in a purple cloak at his friend's feet, and a tiny cry came from the bundle. At that Chiron started up and saw who was come to him. And he gave Peleus loving greeting. "My son," he said, "often have I longed to see your face again, and even now I was thinking of you. But what cry did I hear at hand, like the cry of a motherless lamb? Alas, why weep you at these words?" "O Chiron," said Peleus, "it is indeed a motherless lamb I bring you." And he unrolled the cloak and put a yellow-haired babe into the centaur's arms. "Take my little son," he said, "and be tender to him with the tenderness you show to every helpless thing, for there is none to rear him in my desolate house." And for the very grief he could say no more. But the babe, who was beautiful as the day, looked into Chiron's wise old face and smiled. And Chiron said, "See, already he is without fear, this child who is to be so great a warrior." Then he called Pyrrha and Eurydice, those gentle nurses of many a hero, and gave them the babe into their keeping. But he himself made ready supper for Peleus without more words, for he saw that his sorrow was great. Nor did he ask him any more questions till he had cheered him with food and wine. And they were sitting together as of old beside the hearth. Then, laying his hand on the young man's shoulder, he said, "Will you not tell me now, my son, what this sorrow is, which I can but guess at, that if I cannot help you, at least I may strive to comfort you?" "Little I thought," said Peleus, "when I left this cave, the happiest of mortals, that ever I should come back with such tidings as I must tell you now. The daughter of Nereus has forsaken me and our child, and gone back to the Sea King's halls. She told me at the beginning that she must leave me forever the first time I crossed her in anything, for such, she said, is the way of all the sea people. And when the babe was born, I woke one night and saw her steal out of our chamber carrying it in her arms, and I followed her to see what she would do. She went into the hall, where the fire still burned on the hearth, and there, horror-stricken, I saw her thrust the child into the glowing embers. Who could see that and not do as I did? Yet the reproachful look Thetis gave me as I snatched the babe from her pierced me to the soul. "Did I not warn you," she said, "never to cross me? Had you not hindered, I would have made the child weapon-proof from head to heel by the power of flame. But I must leave that work undone. Farewell, farewell." With that, quick as a lightning flash, she darted from the hall and from the palace and flung herself into the sea. Chiron listened without wonder to this strange story, for he knew both the nature of the sea people and the magic they can work. "Be comforted, Peleus," he said. "Remember how Apollo prophesied in his song that your son should be reared in this cave of mine? It was fated then that his mother should thus leave him. And though Thetis is lost to you now, yet if you wait patiently, sure I am that she will come to you again at last, never to leave you more. For happiness must come in the end of bridals which the high gods blessed with their presence." The kindly centaur's words soothed the grief of Peleus and brought him new hope. "I will be patient," he said, "and as for the child, I remembered the song of Apollo, and it lightened my heart a little to think of his growing up in your care, my wise and tender teacher. But tell me now why Thetis said her work was not finished, and by what magic the babe passed unhurt through the flame." "Fire has no power on the bodies of the immortals," said Chiron, "nor on any living thing, so long as an immortal has hold of it. So the babe was safe while Thetis held it, and its flesh is weapon-proof wherever the flame touched it. But what fire does not burn, it makes unwoundable. But to finish her work, Thetis must have plunged the child into the fire a second time, because where her hand grasped it, there the flame could not reach." "She held it by one heel," said Peleus. "That heel, then," said Centaur, "is the one spot where your son can be wounded." Thus they talked together till far into the night, and on the morrow Peleus departed to his own home. At his going, Chiron asked him what he should call his son, and he said Achilles is the name his mother gave him. The little Achilles was the fairest and the most bold-hearted of all the good Centaur's foster children, and soon was dearer to him than even the beautiful Jason had been, or Asclepios, the healer. In his very babyhood, he began to love the hunter's sport, not less than Peleus, his father, did, and his first plaything was a little bow and arrow that he begged for as soon as he could speak. With these he would shoot from the doorway of the cave at prowling wolf or bear, but when he was 6 summers old, he could not be content till Chiron gave him leave to go hunting in the forest. And that day another prophecy was fulfilled, for at sunset the centaur, looking forth from the cavern, saw the little boy running towards him, dragging the still panting carcass of a huge wild boar, and he saw too, though Achilles could not, 2 stately forms moving beside him. One was clad in shining armor, with a golden helm upon her golden hair, and a great spear in her hand. The other, still taller and slender as a young poplar, wore the short garb and leathern buskins of a hunter, and carried a silver bow. It was the great Athena and Artemis, the lady of the wild things, who walked smiling beside the marvelous child. And not then only, but through all his boyhood, they loved to watch his daring and his strength, like a young god's. Now Chiron taught Achilles all the precepts of wisdom and the perfect ways of honor and courtesy, but warrior skill and hunting craft he had no need to teach him, for they were his by nature. So swift of foot was he that he could run down the hart and the roebuck, so strong that he could take bison and boar alive, without help of hounds or hunting nets. And though he had seen no weapon but bow and spear, of those he had such mastery from his infant days that Chiron knew no warrior could stand against him. So the years went by until Chiron heard from the birds, his news bringers, that a great war was toward. For a king in the south was gathering a mighty host to sail against a distant city. And Troy, the birds told him, was the city's name. When Chiron heard that, he called Achilles to him and said, "My child, it was in this cave that your mother's marriage feast was held, and all the gods came to it to bless the bridals, and bright Apollo uttered in song the destiny that was in store for you. I see now the beginning of those things which he foretold, and the time has come for you to return to your father's house, that you may go the way fate has prepared for those swift feet of yours. Farewell, last and dearest of my fosterlings. I know that I must see your face no more, and yet I cannot grieve at your departing, when I remember Apollo's prophecy and the glory that you are so soon to win." Thus he took leave of the youth, and sent him away that same hour to Phthia, the country of Peleus in the north. Achilles found his father dwelling in the palace by the sea, which he had called the house of Thetis, in honor of his bride. Peleus beheld him with joy and said, "Welcome, my beloved son. I know you are come at the good centaur's bidding, for he promised me long ago to send you home to me when the right time came." Now Thetis had learnt from Nereus, who could foresee it all, what her child's doom must be if ever he went to war. And when the old sea king told her that messengers were even then on their way to seek him in the house of Peleus and summon him to the gathering of princes against Troy, she resolved to prevent them. She rose up through the sea that night and glided silently to the bedside of Achilles and carried him away in his sleep to an island called Scyros. So when he awoke, behold, he was lying on an unknown shore, and saw a strange and beautiful lady bending over him. Then Thetis made herself known to her son, and prayed him, if he had any love for his mother, to do what she would now bid him without questioning. For if he would not, she said with tears, a grievous thing must befall her. And Achilles promised to obey her, remembering the teaching of Chiron, how he had said that next to the immortal gods, father and mother must be reverenced. Forthwith Thetis dressed the youth in a broidered robe, and when she had combed out his long fair hair with a comb of pearl, he seemed a tall, blooming maiden. "I will bring you now," she said, "to the king of this isle, who is a friend to me and my people, and will say to him that you are a maid I have saved from shipwreck. At my request, he will lodge you for a while with the princess, his daughter. And do you, for my sake, take heed that no one discovers you are not what you seem." So she brought him to the king's house, and he became the loved companion of the young princes and her maidens. And in their games, the new playmate was always the winner, but in weaving and spinning was so clumsy that they made great sport of her. But the day after Thetis stole away Achilles, those messengers whom she feared came to Peleus, saying, "King Agamemnon is marshaling a host to sail against Troy, and princes who love peril and renown are gathered to him from many lands. We are come from him to greet you, and to pray you to send your young son along with us. For a seer has revealed that Troy cannot be taken, save by a warrior sprung from Peleus." "He shall surely go with your host," answered Peleus, "and not alone, for I will send some 50 ships, well manned, to Agamemnon's aid." Then he sent to call Achilles before the messengers, but he could not be found. Now the messengers were King Agamemnon's herald, and a certain prince by name Odysseus. This Odysseus was the wiliest of men, and the most keen-witted, and it came into his thought that Peleus had heard of the war and hidden his son, betimes that he might not go into danger. "Swear to us, king," he said, "that you are not beguiling us, for how can your son have gone hence, and you know nothing of it?" Peleus had a mind to give him an angry answer, but he refrained himself and called Zeus to witness that he knew not what was become of Achilles. "This, then, is the work of some god," said Odysseus, and he departed with the herald. Now this subtle prince was very greatly favored by Athena, for that goddess loves valor much, but prudence more, and Odysseus, though no coward, was better in counsel than in fight. So he had not gone far on his road when she met him in the likeness of an old seaman, and said, "The lad you seek, Odysseus, is in Scyros, for I saw him there." "I will take ship and go find him," said Odysseus. "That will not be easy," said the seeming old man. "He dwells in the king's house in the guise of a maiden, and none has guessed his secret but myself, who knew his face aforetime." "Nevertheless, I will go," said Odysseus, "for I think I know a way to tell a youth from a girl, and disguise is a trick that others can play besides Achilles." Not many days after, an old peddler came to the king's house in Scyros, and the princess and her maidens flocked in the hall to see his wares. The peddler spread out his great pack and showed them all his rarities on the snowy lawn of Cyprus, shawls of Tyrian purple, necklaces of amber, and golden girdles studded with eastern turquoise. He eyed the girls keenly while they eagerly fingered the trinkets, and chauffeured with him over such as pleased their fancy. And he marked that one only looked carelessly on, and chose nothing. And to her the princess said, "Pyrrha, my sweet, do you care for none of these pretty things? Come, choose some jewel, what you will, and let me make you a gift of it." And Pyrrha answered, "Nay, dearest princess, I have no mind to any of these baubles." At that the peddler smiled, and the princess said to him, "O man, have you shown us all your store? If you have kept some choice trinket to the last, as peddlers use, let Pyrrha see if it pleases her better than the rest." "Gracious lady," said the peddler, "I have one thing left, but it is no toy to please a maiden." So saying, he drew from its wrappings a sword of rare workmanship, ivory hilted, with golden lions inwrought on its blade of dark blue steel. Pyrrha's eyes sparkled at the sight of it. She took it from his hand, poised it in her own, and cried, "This is the gift for me, if the peddler asked not too great a price for such a goodly weapon." "It is yours without a price," answered the peddler, "if you dare use it, Achilles." And suddenly he tore off beard and coarse mantle and stood before them a bronze corsleted warrior, for he was none other than Odysseus, and this was how he found the son of Peleus. "There is some treachery," cried the princess, and she fled out of the hall with the other maidens. Achilles was both ashamed and angry that he had betrayed himself to this cunning stranger, but Odysseus, with artful words, soon changed his mood, telling him of the glory to be won at Troy, and how Peleus himself desired to send him with 20 ships to that war. Then Achilles forgot all else in eagerness for that great adventure, and would have sailed that very hour in the ship of Odysseus, which waited him in a lonely bay. But he said, "If I go with you to the host in these maidens' robes, I shall be shamed forever." "That I have cared for," said Odysseus, and he unrolled a bale of fine linen and took out a suit of armor and clad the youth in it, girding him with the sword. At that moment the king came in to them from the fields, for he had been watching the sowers, and his daughter had run to him there. "Ah, son of Thetis," he said, "you then were the maiden your mother bade me harbor. I guessed so much when I heard my daughter's tale, for I knew Achilles was the name that gracious sea queen gave her child. Now, as I hear you are found by this stranger, let me understand, I pray, what brings him here." Straightway Odysseus told his errand, and to win the king upon his side, he declared the prophecy that Troy could not be taken without help of one sprung from Peleus. This the king no sooner heard than he desired to have alliance with the youth who was destined to such greatness, and said, "How blessed is Peleus, who has a son so highly favored of the gods. Would that I too might hear Achilles call me father." "King of Scyros," said the youth with a rosy blush, "if your fair daughter can love Achilles as she loved Pyrrha, it would please me well to call you by that name. But this is no time for marrying or giving in marriage, and I must be gone." "Nay," said the king, "what needs such haste? Let Odysseus go to Phthia and take the 50 ships your father promised to where the host is mustering, and stay you here meanwhile. We will have your wedding this very day, and in 7 days you also shall sail to the trysting place. So will no time be lost, for Odysseus will take 7 days in going and returning." And Odysseus consented to go, but before he left them, he said, "I hear of you, Achilles, that you hate a lie worse than death. Pledge me your word, therefore, that in 7 days you will come without fail to the harbor of Aulis, for that is the trysting place." So Achilles gave his word, and forthwith Odysseus departed. Now the king had told his daughter whom he guessed Pyrrha to be, and she wept bitterly because her loved playmate was no maiden, as she thought, but a youth who perhaps had scorned her all this time in secret for her girlish ways. And she had offered him one of those glittering trifles, baubles he called them truly, whose rightful wear was the armor of a prince. It seemed to her that she could never look him in the face again for very shame, and she stole away by herself and went down to the seashore and sat there weeping. Presently she began to reproach Thetis aloud for what she had done, calling seaward and saying, "O lady of the waves, why have you dealt so evilly with us? Do not we of this isle honor you and your sisters above all the goddesses because of your kindly help to our fishermen? Many a boat have you brought safe to shore in tempest. Many a great shoal of tunny have you driven into their nets. But have we ever forgotten to be grateful? If you had trusted my father with the truth about the guest you brought him, I had not been shamed this day." Then Thetis, rising through the deep, came to her where she sat, and she too was weeping. "King's daughter," she said, "it was to save my child from doom that I hid him here, for he must fall in battle if he goes where the hateful Odysseus seeks to take him. Yes, it was Odysseus, that crafty fox, who played the peddler, and now he has found Achilles. He will bend him to his purpose with cunning words. But you, if you have any pity for my son, may save him yet." "I would give my life for his," said the princess, casting down her eyes. "Only tell me what I must do." Thetis smiled through her tears and answered, "I will tell you that on our way to the palace. Come, let us be going, for I am in haste to meet my son." So as they went together, Thetis told the princess that she was to be married to Achilles that same day, and prayed her to keep him from going to Troy. "How can I do that?" asked the princess. "Ask him what he will give you for a bride's gift," said Thetis, "and he will bid you choose what you will. Then say you choose the granting of the first request you make to him, and let that request be that he will not leave you for a year." Now when they came to the palace, they found all things ready for the marriage, and the maidens were waiting to deck the bride in her finest jewels and array. And when they had attired her, Thetis set her own crown of pearls on her hair, saying, "These are the bride price my son pays on his marriage, as the custom is." Then were Achilles and the princess wed, with pomp and great rejoicings, and the king held a feast for all comers. And after the marriage, the princess sought a gift from Achilles, as Thetis had counseled, and he bade her choose what she would. "I desire nothing but this," she said, "that you will grant the first request that I shall make." "Diodama," said Achilles, that was the name of the princess, I love you too well to refuse anything you ask me, if it be not against my honor to do it. Prove me now, and let me hear your first request." But when she asked him to stay with her for a year, he told her that could not be, for he had given his word to Odysseus to set sail for Aulis in 7 days. Nor could all her tears and entreaties move him to break his promise, although his soul was troubled at her distress. So on the 7th day they parted, with many a tender and sad farewell. Heavy were their young hearts that day, and dark forebodings came to them that they should see each other no more forever. Yet Achilles comforted his bride as best he might, bidding her hope for his return with the victor's spoils from the war. And then, not to grieve him too sorely, she feigned better cheer and looked her last on him with a smile. Thus the son of Peleus and the sea king's daughter went forth to Troy, as it was ordained, but what befell him there of sorrow and glory we leave untold, for such matters are too high and moving for a mere fairy tale. This is the end of section 11.